Hey, what is going on, Guardians? TBL here, back of course to cover this week's issue of This Week at Bungie for the week of February 15th, 2018. Faction Rally is coming back, and it feels like it just went away, but this is actually pretty good. I prefer it when there's something to do every single week in Destiny, where they have these kinds of events going back to back to back. Something I made a point of a while back was that I hope we get to the point where like every week there's something special going on in Destiny. One week we can have Iron Banner, the next week we can have Faction Rallies, the next week we can have something after that. I don't know, maybe something like Sparrow Racing League. Please bring that back. So I'm happy to see that Faction Rallies are coming back, especially with the change to Lost Sectors. They've gotten rid of that timer system. It looks like they managed to work out the way instances work, so you can go and farm those Lost Sectors as fast as you can kill those bosses with no timers to hold you back. Definitely a good change. And then of course we get a look at the armor for the new monarchy, the future war cult, and of course the Dead Orbit. Who's gonna take the win this time around? Anybody but Dead Orbit is probably what I would have to say. But what are we going to be getting this time? What's going to be the rewards? It looks like we're getting ourselves a Dead Orbit linear fusion rifle, a future war cult energy hand cannon, and a Suros-styled new monarchy scout rifle. Additionally, the 3 victory reward auto rifles from the last faction rally are also going to be added to that loot pool. So the auto rifle for Future War Cult, New Monarchy, and Dead Orbit are going to be in the overall loot pool this time around. So you should be able to get those new weapons from the engrams. And thank goodness they got ahead of that horse and went ahead and mentioned that, because that was kind of a head scratcher in the previous faction rally. Anyways, they continued on by saying, that's not all that is at stake. At the end of the event, the faction with the most packages redeemed will offer their prized weapon as a reward. Those who are loyal to the winner get a big discount and can pick it up for 1,000 Glimmer. Everyone else can still get it at 50,000. Here is what the factions have to offer in the event that they are victorious. For New Monarchy, it looks like you're going to be able to get your hands on the Legal Action 2 Pulse Rifle. For Dead Orbit, it looks like we're getting the 3 Graves Pulse Rifle. And finally, in kind of a bit of a swerve, if Future War Cult manages to win, you'll be able to get your hands on the Dream Legendary Scout Rifle. So definitely an interesting batch of rewards. I'm really interested in seeing what the Scout Rifle for the Future War Cult is going to look like. I do believe it's a high-impact frame scout. So based on the perks that are on it, it could definitely be a winner in the future. But anyways, these 3 factions will face off again, and their fates are directly tied to your choices. Will Future War Cult finally win the day? And it kind of seems to me like they really want them to, with that scout being on sale. But that's it for the news when it comes to Faction Rally. After that, we get to hear a little bit more about that good stuff, the Sandbox update changes. Here's some gameplay goals for this pass. Tuning pass on exotic gear focused on adding and/or increasing player power spikes, with a focus on low usage items, but all items are being considered. And finally, they want to lean into an item's established gameplay and push it harder, avoiding catch-all improvements that dilute the item's identity. So, how does this play out? We can look at Graviton Lance for an example. Now, resounding player feedback has been along the lines of, looks great, sounds great, neat explosion. I can't get kills in PvP because all the damage is at the end of the burst. It kicks too hard for the follow-up, and I can't reliably damage targets with the death explosion in any activity because the body goes flying too far backwards. I would actually say that, yeah, that's pretty accurate for how I feel about the Graviton Lance. Well, all spectacle, but not enough utility. To target the first pain point, we reduced the recoil of the burst, added some aim assist, and changed it from 3 rounds to 2. This still plays into the fantasy of a low-damage gravity-neutralizing round forming a projectile tunnel for the last bullet. It also allows us to ensure the damage per burst is at a competitive level for PvP engagements. In fact, it gives Graviton a slight mathematical edge against other pulse rifles. On the second feedback item, we did some tuning to the ragdoll body. We made it so that rather than violently flying backwards and likely out of range of a potential splash damage opportunity, the defeated opponent floats back and then up. Then we made the explosion bigger, increased the damage, and added some void field projectiles that seek out any remaining targets. This is one of the more exaggerated examples to help describe how we're looking at our goals and applying them to the gear. At the time of this writing, the weapons that are not getting an update are Merciless, Telesto, Wardcliff Coil, Mida Multitool, Colony, the Legend of Acreus, and the Vigilance Wing. Some of the above perform well without needing changes, while others, like the Vigilance Wing Pulse Rifle, are already benefiting from the tuning changes planned for Update 1.1.4. Everything else has had some degree of power or utility increase, whether it's simply bumping a stat or some deeper plumbing as described above. And if I can just stop right there, this is the John Wisniewski I want to hear from. Basically, he pointed out some of the best performing exotics in the game, like Merciless, like Wardcliff Coil, Mida Multitool, the Legend of Acrius, and went out of his way to say, we're not touching those at all. We're not going to be nerfing those in the classic Bungie style to bring them more in line with other things. We're taking the other underperforming exotics and we're bringing them up a stage to match the best performing weapons in the game. And when it comes to the Graviton Lance, I like that. I like that it's going to be basically dealing a little bit more damage per shot. It's basically going to have less recoil. It's going to be more reliable, and you're hopefully actually going to be able to use that thing in PvP. This all sounds good thus far. But continuing on, he says, we'll be touching a lot of powerful gear with this update, and to truly understand the impact for players requires a lot of design iteration and test time. It isn't enough to crank up the damage and run one Striker Crucible match with a gun and helmet and move on. Dialing in the right amount of power, testing in all activities with all types of loadouts, finding the bugs, fixing the bugs, updating the perk description text to reflect new behavior, and handing that off to localization for translation, it's a ton of work. I thought it was really important that they note, hey, these things aren't instant. It takes a long time to test these changes, even the more minute, fine-tuned things. It can have all kinds of effects, and it's a lot more complicated than just saying, all right, let's bump up, range on pulse rifles by 20%. Go run a strike. Did it feel good? Yeah, well, good. Let's bring it back. That's enough. No more testing. But alright, Guardians, that's pretty much it for the biggest bits of news in this week's This Week at Bungie. And overall, there's a lot in here to digest, and I'm very happy to hear about some of the exotic changes coming forward. Even more so than like the buff that they talked about for the Graviton Lance, I'm more so psyched to hear that they're not going to be messing with like Legend of Acrius or the Wardcliff Coil or the Merciless at all. That's what I really believe is really important when it comes to exotic balance moving forward. Make everything as good as the Mida. Make everything as good as the Legend. Make everything as good as the Merciless, rather than bringing those things down in a constant state of power dip, like I believe happened with Destiny 1. But alright, Guardians, that is it. Be sure to let us know what you all think of these changes down in the comment section below. Are you playing Crimson Doubles? Having fun with it? Are you going to come back next week for Faction Rally? Be sure to let us know. And if you enjoyed this, feel free to drop a like and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all of the latest Destiny 2 news. But I'm out for now. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.